She was moaning in the front seat of an Uber when I opened the door with her wallet in my hand. I'd found it on the kitchen counter. She had rushed out 20 minutes earlier, late for another networking dinner. I thought I'd do something nice, drive it over, maybe surprise her. Her phone location was still shared with me. I wasn't expecting anything. I pulled up behind a parked car 2 blocks from our house. Uber sticker in the window. Engine running. Windows fogged. I walked up, opened the passenger side door, and there she was. My wife, my Emma, straddling some guy in the driver's seat, blouse undone, her head thrown back. She shrieked when she saw me. He froze. She pulled her skirt down, stumbled back into the seat. Her face turned white. Then, the line I'll never forget. It's not what you think. I shut the door, walked back to my car, drove home in silence. But this story didn't start there. It started months ago when Emma, my wife of 6 years, suddenly decided she liked taking Ubers. Emma used to hate ride shares. Said they were shady. Said she didn't feel safe in some random guy's back seat. We joked about it. She even told a story once about a creepy driver and said, "Never again." So imagine my surprise when she began taking them to work, daily. "Parking's closed," she said. "Construction." Okay, I thought. Fine. Then I offered to drive her. "No, you work from home. It's out of your way." Always the same driver, Samir. Always polite text from Uber. Then one day she joked, "If Samir ever quits, I might have to start walking again." I remember laughing. That laugh is burned into my brain now. Things changed slowly. Emma got distant. Cold. Critical. Said I was getting comfortable, like it was a crime. She started dressing up more. Lipstick every day. Heels, short skirts. I complimented her. She rolled her eyes. "It's for work. Don't be weird." We stopped being intimate. She was tired, busy, stressed. And her phone? Never left her side. Face down. Locked. Silent. One night, I reached for it to check the time. She snatched it like I was stealing. "Respect my privacy, seriously." That's when the voice in my head started getting louder. But I told it to shut up. Because she was my wife. And I trusted her. Then came the barbecue. Our friends invited us over. Emma barely spoke to me. She spent the whole night texting, laughing at messages, hiding her phone. On the drive home, I asked, "Are we okay?" She sighed. "You're smothering me lately. It's like you're bored." And boring. That word hit like a bullet. I didn't reply. A week later, she was in the shower. Her phone buzzed. I glanced. One message, glowing on the screen. "Samir, still thinking about your thighs on my lap. You're gonna get me fired, LOL." I didn't move. Didn't breathe. She walked out moments later. Hair wet. Towel tight. Saw me. "Are you spying on me now? Who's Samir to you?" "Oh my God, seriously? He's my driver. Don't be pathetic." She took the phone. Left the room. That was when I knew. I waited. Watched. Listened. Checked her ride logs. Every day, Samir. Sometimes twice. That night, when she left in a rush, I saw her wallet on the counter. I picked it up. Got in my car. I didn't expect what I saw. I didn't expect that pain. I didn't expect my entire marriage to detonate like that. But here I am. And if you think that was the worst part, it wasn't. What came next was even more twisted, more humiliating, and more revealing than anything I imagined. When Emma got home that night, maybe an hour after I saw her with him, she didn't even knock. She walked in like nothing happened. Hair down, shoes in her hand. No shame, no fear, just cold. She saw me sitting at the kitchen table, my keys in front of me, her wallet beside them. She looked at it, then at me, and said, "Are you seriously going to act like a child about this?" No apology, no explanation, just immediate offense. I didn't respond. I think I was still in shock, like my body hadn't caught up to my brain yet. She sat down, across from me. Her tone switched, not soft, but quieter. "Okay, it wasn't what it looked like. You scared me, just barging in like that." I stared at her. My voice felt like it was stuck in my throat. "You were on top of him, Emma." She blinked slowly, like I'd said something inconvenient. "And maybe if you weren't so emotionally distant all the time, I wouldn't have to look for connection somewhere else." That was the first shot she fired, turning it on me. And that was just the beginning. The next morning, she told our mutual friends that I exploded at her for no reason, and that I was paranoid. One of them even texted me, "Hey man, I heard you lost it last night. What's going on?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to say. She's been sneaking around with her Uber driver, and I caught them together. Emma was always good at spinning a narrative. She cried to her sister. said I was controlling, said I didn't support her career. Meanwhile, I was sitting in my car outside a grocery store, trying not to break down, trying to figure out if maybe it was my fault. Maybe I had become boring, predictable, easy to ignore. That thought stayed with me for days. Then came the confrontation I regret the most. It was 4 days later. We were barely speaking, sharing a house like strangers. She stayed in the guest room. Her phone never left her hand. I asked her, not yelled, not accused, just asked, if she was still seeing him. That's none of your business, she said, flipping through her messages. I asked again, calmly, did it start before the summer? She looked at me like I was a child. You're obsessed. You know that? You think this is all about you. Maybe if you had actually paid attention to me when it mattered. That broke something in me. I paid the mortgage. I planned our anniversary. I supported your promotion. I gave you space when you asked for it. What more did you want? She laughed. Laughed. Exactly. You gave me space. That's not love. That's distance. No remorse. No guilt. Just words sharpened into weapons. A few days later, I started noticing small things disappearing. Her books. Her favorite pillow. The mug she always used. Then, one morning, she was gone. Left a note. I need time. Don't contact me unless it's about something important. And just like that, she vanished from our house, leaving behind silence and 1,000 questions. But she didn't disappear from my life. Not even close. Because the next part? That's when the manipulation really started. That's when she told my parents her version of the story. That's when she made sure everyone heard how she was the victim. And that's when I realized I wasn't just losing my wife, I was losing the truth. The worst thing about being lied to isn't the betrayal. It's the rewriting of your own memories. The way you start looking back and realizing how much of your life wasn't what you thought it was. The moments that seem normal suddenly feel staged. Familiar routines feel like cover stories. That's what happened to me the week after she left. It started with her email. I wasn't trying to snoop, honestly. I wasn't. But Emma had left her laptop on the dining table, still logged into her email. Part of me wanted to close it and walk away. The other part didn't. What I found wasn't just confirmation. It was something worse. I found a folder in her inbox called Weekend Retreat. That was the trip she took back in August. Said it was a self-development getaway with a few coworkers. I opened the folder. There were booking confirmations, yes, but not for a retreat. For a 2-night stay at a boutique hotel in the city. 2 guests. 1 king bed. I kept scrolling. Dinner reservations. Spa treatments. A note. Happy early birthday, you deserve a real break this time. None of it was from Samir. It was someone named Mark. That name hit me like a cold wave. Mark was a friend from her old job. I'd met him once, maybe twice. Bald, tall, always smiling. Nothing threatening. Just another face in the background of her stories. Apparently, he wasn't in the background at all. I kept digging. I know I shouldn't have. But at that point, the need to know everything was stronger than anything else. There were messages. Some flirty. Some emotional. One thread where she talked about me, called me safe. Said I was sweet but not exciting. Worse than the physical betrayal was the language. The cold detachment. Like I was some long-term leash she was preparing to break. She even told Mark. I think he knows something. I just have to keep playing calm for a bit longer. That one gutted me. I sat there for an hour, maybe more, just reading. Going through photos, messages, receipts. There wasn't just one betrayal. There was a timeline. Mark before Samir. Maybe someone else before him. It was like layers of rot hiding behind a painted wall. I had been patching cracks, not realizing the whole structure was already decaying. And worst of all, I remembered the weekend of that retreat. I had packed her bag for her, drove her to the train station, kissed her goodbye. While she was checking into a romantic hotel with someone else, I was texting her, "Miss you already." She replied, "Same red heart." The anger came later. First came the numbness. I didn't tell anyone right away. I didn't even know what to say. I just walked through the house like a ghost, surrounded by a life that no longer felt like mine. Then, the next blow. Emma's sister texted me, casual, as if nothing had happened. "Hey, just a heads up. Em's moving some stuff into Mom's this weekend. She asked me to grab a few things from the house. Cool if I stop by." No mention of what happened. "No, I'm sorry. Just logistics." I replied. "Sure. Let me know when." She came by that Saturday. I let her in. She looked uncomfortable, avoided eye contact. We didn't talk much. But as she was leaving, she hesitated in the doorway. "You don't deserve this." I just I didn't know how bad it really was. If it helps, this isn't the first time. She's complicated. That's when I knew. Emma had a pattern, and I was just the latest casualty. And if I ever wanted peace, I had to stop trying to get closure from a person who never told the truth to begin with. There's a moment after heartbreak where the sadness burns off and something colder takes its place. It's not hatred. Not at first. It's clarity. That's what hit me a few days after I found out about Mark. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't pacing around like some ghost in my own house. I was still, focused, and angry. I started going through old photos, old messages. The ones that used to make me smile, now they made my stomach turn. A birthday photo from 2 years ago. She's smiling, holding my arm. I remember thinking that night, I'm so lucky. Now, all I can see is her hand in mine while her heart was somewhere else. I checked her calendar. She had once shared it with me. There it was, little coded entries. Dinner, yoga downtown, client meeting. All alibis. It was like watching someone forge a life next to mine while never really being in it. And I began to realize something I hadn't let myself say out loud yet. She never planned on staying. Not really. I started telling people, not as a cry for help, but because I was done protecting her lies. I told my best friend, Jordan. His reaction said it all. Dude, I had a feeling. I just didn't know how to say it. That hurt. But I couldn't blame him. She was charming, convincing, and I had been too eager to believe the best. I told my parents. My mom cried. My dad looked like he wanted to drive across town and confront her himself. But what stuck with me most was when he said, "You gave her everything. She just didn't want what you gave." One evening, I got a message from a name I didn't recognize. David. Hey, I'm sorry if this is weird, but I used to work with Emma. I heard what happened. I'm not trying to stir anything, but you're not crazy. She's been like this for a long time. We talked for an hour. He didn't go into graphic detail, but he told me enough. Emma had a history of crossing lines. With coworkers. With clients. Always subtle. Always deniable. But always just close enough to emotional infidelity and sometimes more. It wasn't about love. It was about control, power, attention. And I had been the steady man in the background. The placeholder. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to her. To myself. I wrote everything I felt. The betrayal. The humiliation. The confusion. But most of all, the relief. Because I finally knew it wasn't about me not being enough. It was about her never being honest. I didn't burn the letter. I folded it and put it in the drawer next to my bed. Because someday, when the sadness tries to creep back in, I want to remind myself of the truth. The next morning, I called a lawyer. No more stalling. No more bargaining with someone who traded in deception. It was time to start the process. Filing for divorce should have felt like a victory. A clean break. A boundary. But it didn't. Not at first. It felt like closing a book and realizing you never understood the plot. The lawyer's office was cold and professional. I signed papers. Answered questions. Nodded at advice. And when I stepped back out into the sunlight, it didn't feel lighter. Just empty. But it had to be done. Because even though Emma had left, she hadn't let go. Not of me. Not of the story. I found out she was already talking to people, not just friends or family, but coworkers, mutual acquaintances, even neighbors. And what she was saying wasn't just spin. It was fiction. She told them I was controlling. Cold. That I had emotionally checked out years ago. That I'd monitored her location and invaded her privacy. That part stung the most. I remember once, 2 years ago, she was working late, and I texted her at 10 p.m., asking if everything was okay. She came home furious. Said I was being clingy. Said she needed space. Now that same night was being retold as part of some pattern. Like I'd been stalking her. It wasn't just words, either. A few people pulled away from me. Friends we both knew. Some stopped responding. Others were polite, but distant. One even said, "Look, man. I don't know what happened between you two, but she's been through a lot." It was surreal. Like she was erasing who I was and replacing me with a villain. And the worst part? She was good at it. Emma always knew how to read a room. How to cry just enough. How to lace the truth with just enough emotion that people didn't ask questions. She didn't need evidence. She had tone. The only person who called her out to her face was Jordan. He saw her at a local coffee shop. He told me about it later. I asked her straight up, "Emma, why'd you do it? You had a good guy." She didn't deny anything. She just shrugged. He was boring. Predictable. Safe. Like I was a seatbelt she didn't want anymore. Then, A week later, came the text that nearly broke me again. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't answer right away. I waited. Then she sent another. I just think we should have some closure. I feel like you hate me, and I don't want that. Closure. That word, it's poison sometimes. Because it sounds peaceful, but what it often means is, let me rewrite this ending so I feel better about myself. Still, I agreed to meet. Not for her. For me. Because part of me needed to see it, face to face. The woman I thought I married and the person she'd become. We met at a park. Neutral ground. Daylight. Public. I didn't trust her enough to meet anywhere else. She looked different. Softer somehow. Like guilt had rounded her edges. But her voice was still the same. Calculated. Just quiet enough to sound gentle. She started with tears. Said she never meant to hurt me. Said she felt trapped and unseen. I listened. Didn't interrupt. Didn't comfort. Then she said, you were just always there. And I started wondering if maybe I needed to figure out who I was without you. I asked her one question. How long were you planning to leave me? She didn't answer. That told me everything. I left without saying goodbye. That was the real closure. Later that night, she posted a photo on Instagram. Just a quote. Sometimes people grow apart, and that's okay. Healing is messy. Hundreds of likes. Comments like, you're so strong. Meanwhile, I was sitting alone in my house, packing up the guest room she never really moved into. But here's the thing. Every time she rewrote the story, it got easier for me to stop trying to explain mine. Let her be the misunderstood heroine in her own tragedy. I was done auditioning for the role of her villain. I thought the worst was behind me after that meeting in the park. I thought I had finally crossed the finish line, stepped out of her storm and into something that might eventually feel like peace. But I underestimated her talent for keeping herself in the center of everything, even my healing. It started small. A voicemail late one night. Her voice quiet, fragile. Hey, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I was just thinking about the dog park we used to go to. I walked by it. That's all. Hope you're okay. I didn't reply. Then she emailed me. Just a subject line. You forgot your sweater. Inside was a photo of an old hoodie I hadn't worn in years. Something I probably would have thrown out. It was bait. I knew it. But something about it still worked on me. That strange nostalgia, the part of your brain that still wants to believe someone can mean well, even after they've proven they don't. I didn't answer that either. So she sent a package. To my door. No return label. Inside was a small box with photos. Us in Maine. Her birthday 2 years ago. A napkin with something she'd doodled during a road trip. She wrote one sentence on the back of a picture. We weren't always broken. I'll admit it. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not because I missed her, but because I missed who I thought she was. There's a difference, one that's hard to recognize when you're still bleeding. So I put the photo in a drawer and kept going. But she didn't stop. A week later, my mom called me sounding confused. I just got off the phone with Emma. She said you two were working things out. I almost dropped the phone. We're not. We haven't spoken. Apparently Emma had told her she was hopeful and in contact with me. That progress was being made. I hadn't replied to a single message. Now she was creating a second story, a quieter one, behind my back. Not public like before. Not to friends. This time, it was just enough to plant a seed with family. Just enough to make it harder for me to move on cleanly. Then came the worst part. Jordan called me and said he saw Emma at a bar downtown. Not with Samir. Not with Mark. With someone new. Tall guy. Slick. Not a familiar face. They weren't hiding. She was laughing. Holding his hand. Whispering in his ear. And the next day, she texted me again. Just checking in. Hope you're okay. As if she hadn't already moved on. As if I was still an open tab she refused to close. That was when I realized. She didn't want me. But she didn't want me free, either. Emma needed to be central in every version of the story. Even if we were apart, I had to remain orbiting her gravity. So I made a choice. I changed my number. I blocked her on every platform. I removed shared accounts. Changed passwords. Cleared joint subscriptions. Returned mail labeled in her name. I told my family, clearly, that she and I were done, and that if she tried to use them to reach me, they had to shut it down. It felt drastic. But it also felt like air for the first time in weeks. It wasn't easy. Ghosts don't disappear just because you stop answering the door. Sometimes I'd wake up thinking I'd heard her voice in the hallway, or imagine the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. I'd see a hoodie in my closet and forget, for a second, that she wasn't just in the other room. But slowly, it changed. I started reading again, going for walks without my phone, cooking for one and enjoying it, rearranging furniture, reclaiming space. It didn't feel like healing. Not exactly. It felt like reclaiming. Like I was taking back pieces of myself that had been slowly borrowed, broken, or discarded during the years I spent trying to keep her happy. Then, one night, I was out late walking. Quiet neighborhood. Cool air. I passed a bakery that had just closed. A little dog inside barked at me through the window, and I smiled. Not because of the dog, but because I realized I wasn't thinking about her. Not comparing. Not remembering. Not measuring my night against what she would have said or done. I was just in it. Present. That was the first real sign I was healing. And maybe the most important moment since it all began. It was almost 2 months since I'd last seen Emma when I got the message that changed everything again. This time, it wasn't from her. It was from someone named Claire. You don't know me, but I think I can help you understand what really happened. I stared at the message for minutes. Checked the profile. No mutual friends. A locked account. Generic photo. Spam? A trap? A prank? I almost deleted it. But something in the wording, the calm, the precision, made me pause. I replied. Help me understand what, exactly? She responded immediately. Emma and I used to work together. We weren't close. But I know what she did. You deserve to know all of it. Not just the parts she let you see. We agreed to meet in public, early afternoon. A coffee shop near downtown. Neutral ground, like the park meeting with Emma. Claire was in her mid-30s, sharp but tired-looking, like someone who'd carried more secrets than she wanted to. She introduced herself simply. No drama. No overfamiliarity. She pulled out a phone, opened a folder, screenshots, emails, and one voice message. Emma had apparently had a short-lived situationship, Claire's word, with a client she met at a marketing event the year before she met Samir, a man she later accused of being too intense. But Claire showed me emails between Emma and this guy, flirtatious, suggestive, manipulative. Emma had ghosted him after he threatened to go to her company about their relationship. That's when she moved to a different department. That's when she stopped bringing work stories home. Claire was one of the few who saw it all. She also showed me a message Emma sent about me to a mutual coworker. He doesn't even know who I am, but he likes the version of me he's memorized. That's enough for now. I didn't know whether to feel sick or stupid. Claire looked at me carefully and said, "She's been like this a long time. You were just the one who stayed the longest." I thanked her. I didn't know what else to say. We shook hands, and I left. But I didn't go straight home. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, parked by the lake. Because that was the moment it hit me. Emma wasn't a mistake. She wasn't just a toxic partner. She was a master of masks. And I'd built a life with a costume. The strangest part? I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I felt clean. Like this final layer of illusion had peeled off. And what was underneath wasn't devastation. It was freedom. Later that night, I made a choice. I pulled out a box from the closet, one I hadn't opened since the day she moved out. Photos, cards, letters, receipts from vacations, a wine cork from our 3rd anniversary. One by one, I started sorting, not to destroy, but to reclaim. I kept some. I let most go. And for the first time, I wasn't mourning. I wasn't reminiscing. I was curating my past, not hers. Because the story going forward, it was finally mine again. I didn't expect to see her again. Not really. After everything. The lies, the manipulation, the silence that followed. I figured Emma had found someone new to orbit. Someone else to make feel small, safe, and disposable. But life has a cruel sense of timing. It happened on a Thursday. I remember because I'd just gotten out of the gym, sweaty, headphones in, hoodie up. I wasn't trying to be seen. I was trying to stay invisible. It had become my default lately. Blend in, move through, heal quietly. I was walking out to my car when I saw her. She was sitting on the hood of her own car, just across the street, staring right at me. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just waited. My first instinct was to keep walking. Just get in my car. Drive home. Pretend I didn't see her. But something in her face stopped me. Not guilt. Not arrogance. It was something else, empty. I crossed the street. Slowly. She stood up. Fidgeted with her keys. "Can we talk?" Her voice was smaller than I remembered. "Just 5 minutes. I won't make a scene." I nodded, cautiously. Not because I wanted to hear her out, but because I needed to know if she was still playing games. She wasn't. At least not the way she used to. We sat in her car. Neutral ground, again. I stayed by the door, one foot ready to leave. She didn't speak right away, just looked ahead. I lost the guy, the new one. He found out about everything. Walked out. Said he didn't want someone who lies that easily. She said it with no emotion, like she'd rehearsed it. I guess I thought I was starting over. Clean slate. But it turns out you can't erase patterns just by swapping cities or men. I stayed quiet. You probably hate me. You should. I don't even know what I want from you. I looked at her and finally said, "Why now? Why this?" She turned to me, eyes tired. "Because everyone else believed the mask. You were the only one who actually knew me. And you still stayed. Until you didn't." There it was. Not regret. Not love. Recognition. She knew she'd broken something that had no replacement. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't list the betrayals. I didn't say her name the way I used to, like it meant home. I said, "You didn't break me. You just reminded me I had to build something without you in it." She nodded, almost smiled, but it faded fast. "Is there any part of you that ever thinks about the good?" I answered honestly, "Of course, but it's surrounded now, like a garden swallowed by weeds." We sat in silence for a long while, the kind of silence that used to live in our house during the last months. Except this time, it wasn't heavy. It was final. Before I left, she handed me an envelope. I wrote something. Just for closure. You don't have to read it. I just needed to say it somewhere. I took it. Not out of sentiment. Out of curiosity. When I got home, I didn't open it right away. I made dinner. Watered the plants. Watched a documentary. And only after the house went still, I sat down and opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. It wasn't an apology. Not really. It was a map of her spiral. Paragraph after paragraph of justifications that looped back on themselves. But one line stuck with me. "I wanted to be loved without being seen. You saw me too clearly, and it made me feel small." I ran from that. That was the closest she ever came to the truth. I put the letter back in the envelope. Sealed it. Placed it in a drawer. Not for safekeeping. Just so I wouldn't have to see it again. I slept well that night. Better than I had in weeks. Because seeing her like that, diminished, unraveling, made me realize I was no longer the one who needed answers. I had already left the burning house. She was the one still trying to live in the ashes. And I wasn't going back. There's this belief that once you close the door on someone toxic, they stay on the other side. That once you've done the hard thing, cutting them off, reclaiming your identity, rebuilding your life, you're safe. But closure doesn't always come in a straight line. Sometimes it circles back, wearing a different face. And you have to choose all over again. That's what happened to me 2 weeks after I read her letter. It was a Saturday morning. Cloudy. I was making coffee and about to sit down with a book when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. And there she was. Emma. Again. Hair tied back. Jeans, not a dress. No makeup. No dramatics. Just her. She held up a folder. Neutral expression. I didn't come to talk. I came to return what's yours. It was a file with some paperwork from the house. Old tax stuff. Warranty receipts. Things she'd taken in the split. I opened the folder, half expecting a note tucked inside. There wasn't one. She turned to go. And for a moment, I thought, this is it. This is the real ending. But then she stopped. Looked back at me with that quiet kind of ache in her eyes. "You look better. Like you finally started breathing again." I didn't reply. I didn't know what to say. She stepped closer, not too close. Just enough to let her voice drop a little. "I miss it. The version of me that existed when you loved me." That line hit harder than I expected. Because I knew exactly what she meant. I had loved her so fiercely, so loyally, that even she began to believe she was worthy of it. For a while. And now that love was gone, and she could feel the absence of who she pretended to be. She asked if she could come in. Not to stay. Just to sit. I hesitated. Everything in me screamed, don't open the door again. But curiosity isn't logic. And sometimes, empathy disguises itself as weakness. So I let her in. We sat across from each other on the couch. The same one she used to curl up on while we watched documentaries and ordered takeout. Only now, there was a wall between us. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just reality. She started talking. Not to apologize. But to fill the space. About how she was trying therapy. About how she couldn't hold down her new job. About how her apartment felt like a punishment. She wasn't asking for comfort. But part of her wanted the version of me who would have given it anyway. She talked herself in circles. And eventually, she ran out of things to say. Then came the quiet. And then, do you ever think we were just the wrong timing? That if we met later, maybe. I stopped her. No. Because the right timing doesn't make the wrong person right. Her mouth opened, then closed. No argument this time. She nodded. Slowly. We sat in silence for a while longer. I offered her water. She declined. And then she stood up. Thank you for letting me sit here. Even if it's the last time. It is. She paused at the door. I hope someday you find someone who sees you like I couldn't. I already do. She smiled. A small, sad smile. Then she left. This time, I didn't watch her drive away. I closed the door. Locked it. Not out of spite, but out of certainty. Because the final test wasn't about whether she had changed. It was about whether I had. And I had. You don't feel the exact moment your heart stops hurting. There's no clear bell that rings. No sign from the universe. It just fades. Like background noise you forgot was playing. It took me months to realize I no longer thought of Emma first thing in the morning, or looked for her shadow in places we used to go. The pain had become a dull echo. Manageable. Familiar. And eventually, silent. Spring came early that year. I remember because the lights started shifting in my living room around 5 p.m., casting long, gold beams across the floor. I started noticing that kind of thing again, small beauty, quiet peace. Details I used to overlook when my brain was full of grief. I bought new curtains, repainted the office, hung art I actually liked, not just what we'd agreed on. I didn't rush the healing. I let it arrive how it wanted to, slowly, clumsily, honestly. Jordan visited more often. We grilled on weekends, laughed at bad movies, even started hitting the gym together again. It felt good to laugh without guilt. He told me one night, "You're different now. Not harder. Just realer." And I knew what he meant. I wasn't performing strength anymore. I was strong. Quietly. Without having to prove anything. I saw Emma once more. Not face to face. It was at a bookstore. I was flipping through a novel when I looked up and caught a reflection in a glass display. She hadn't seen me. She was walking with someone. A man I didn't recognize. Holding hands. She laughed at something he said. For a second, I froze. Not because I missed her, but because I didn't. I felt neutral. Like seeing a former classmate from high school. A life you once lived, but no longer belonged to. I didn't approach. I didn't linger. I left. Calm. Light. Free. I started journaling. Not out of pain, but curiosity. I wrote about the man I was, the man I became, and the man I'm still becoming. I wrote about love, not the kind that blinds, but the kind that builds. The kind that doesn't just see your good parts, but your broken ones too. And stays. But only if you deserve it. One entry I remember clearly. I used to think love was holding on. Now I know it's knowing when to let go. Eventually, someone new entered my life. Not in a whirlwind. Not with fireworks or fate. But gently. We met through mutual friends. Had a conversation about photography and coffee. She smiled like she wasn't in a hurry to impress anyone. We talked. Slowly. Honestly. And when I told her my story, she didn't flinch. She listened. She didn't say, "That sounds crazy." She said, "That sounds heavy. I'm glad you came through it." We took things slow. Not out of fear. Out of intention. Because I'd finally learned what kind of love I was worth. The last thing I did was something no one asked me to. I wrote a final letter. To Emma. I didn't send it. I didn't even sign it. I just wrote. You were a chapter, not the story. I don't hate you. I don't love you. I don't owe you anything anymore. I hope you find peace. Not because I wish you well, but because I know what it costs to live without it. Goodbye. Then I burned it. Watched the paper curl in the sink. And with it, every leftover weight I didn't realize I still carried. That night, I slept with the windows open. And for the first time in over a year, I dreamed of something other than survival. I dreamed of possibility, of peace, of a life that was finally, fully, mine.